You know what real peace is? Not explaining yourself and then realizing the world didn't end. And the peace that comes with that, oh, that hits differently. The day you stop explaining yourself is the day you stop being controlled. And you don't stop because you're being rude or because you don't care, but because you finally realize the people demanding explanations were never trying to understand you in the first place. So let's talk about it. Because over explaining, that's not a personality trait. That's a survival strategy, wearing a polite smile. And some of you have been doing emotional tech support for people who didn't even know their own password. But let's start with the obvious. Why did you learn to over explain? Well, maybe you grew up in a house where every feeling needed a justification. Maybe you learned that staying safe meant staying agreeable. Maybe you just wanted to be liked, or you wanted to avoid conflict. And maybe you just wanted someone, anyone, to actually hear you. And then you meet adults who treat your life like it's a committee meeting. People who think they're entitled to a full briefing every time you brief differently. Why are you doing it like that? Why didn't you come? Why are you saying no? Why are you being quiet? Why are you leaving? Why are you existing in a way I didn't approve of? Some people don't want clarity. They want control. And the emotional cost? Oh, that's brutal. Over-explaining drains you. It makes you second guess yourself. It makes you feel like you need permission to exist. And it turns your life into a never-ending Q&A session you never asked for. And it makes you feel misunderstood even when you're speaking in plain English. And then one day, you realise something life-changing. No matter how much you explain, they still don't get it. Because they're not listening, they're waiting. Waiting for something they can twist, waiting for a detail they can weaponise, waiting for you to justify yourself so they can poke holes in it. They don't want communication, they want compliance. And that's when the peace hits. The moment you stop explaining yourself, you reclaim your energy. You stop bending yourselves into shapes that don't even look like you. You stop chasing approval from people who couldn't validate a parking ticket. You start trusting your own decisions and you start choosing yourself. And here's the part nobody tells you. Letting people misunderstand you is a form of emotional freedom. You don't have to correct them. You don't have to defend yourself. And you don't have to give a TED talk every time you make a choice. So say less. Let silence do the heavy lifting. Let people think whatever they want, because no matter what you do, they will anyway. And if someone gets upset because you didn't explain yourself, that's a them problem, not a you problem. Because people who respect you, they don't demand emotional homework. They don't interrogate your boundaries. They don't need a dissertation for your feelings. They just accept them. And here's the truth. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing peace. You don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting your energy. And you don't owe anyone an explanation for being done. You're allowed to say no. I'm not available. I just don't want to. Or that doesn't work for me. I'm not explaining myself. Full stop. No paragraph, no justification, no emotional footnotes. And the peace that comes with that, oh, that hits different. Because suddenly you realise how much of your life was spent narrating yourself to people who weren't even paying attention. You realise how many explanations you gave to people who had already made up their minds. And you realise how much of your energy went into managing other people's reactions instead of living your own life. And the silence that used to feel uncomfortable, that becomes your favourite sound. You stop rushing to fill gaps. You stop trying to preempt every misunderstanding. You stop resuscitating relationships that flatlined a long time ago. And here's the wildest part. The moment you stop explaining yourself, you start hearing yourself more clearly. Your decisions feel cleaner. Your boundaries feel firmer. Your no finally means no. Not no, but let me soften it so I don't upset you. You stop living like a defendant in your own life. You stop treating every choice like it's a crime scene. And you stop giving people access to parts of you they haven't earned. And the people who were only comfortable when you were over explaining, they'll get uncomfortable. They'll call you cold, distant. They'll say, you've changed. Good. You were supposed to. Because the version of you who explained everything was exhausted. The version of you that justified everything was scared. And the version of you who defended everything was just trying to survive. This version is finally living. And that is the whole point of life. And if any of this hits home, I talk a lot about boundaries in my book, which is linked in the description below and in my bio. But anyway, enough rambling from me. But before I go, just remember, you're not cold for saying less. You're not difficult for having boundaries. And you're not selfish for protecting your peace. And you're definitely not rude for refusing to over-explain your existence. You're simply done doing emotional labour for people who think your boundaries are optional. And that's not disrespect, that's self-respect. So if any of this landed for you, if you felt even a little bit seen, stick around, subscribe, and come hang out with me again. We're all navigating this messy, ridiculous human experience, and none of us are doing it perfectly. But this video is just my take, my experience, and I really, really, really want to hear yours too. So please drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me, what's the moment you realised you were done explaining yourself? Because the whole point of this channel isn't just me talking, it's us understanding ourselves and each other a little better every time.